our first order of business. Just wanted to make sure everybody received the minutes from last week's meeting, had an opportunity to review the minutes. I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I would like to request a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
the minutes of our last meeting have been approved. Here's Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. How you doing? Good.
Good. How's it going?
Good. Everybody's doing well. Doing well. So the first item on our agenda was actually a correspondence. I received an unsolicited email last week from a woman by the name of Renee Soto. She is from Bristol, Rhode Island. Can't say that I ever heard of Bristol, Rhode Island, but I believe it's on a little bit of a peninsula. It's got Narragansett Bay on one side and Mount Hope Bay on the other side. But the reason she reached out to me was that she was aware of our group. She knew of Chelmsford's diversity group and wanted to kind of pick our brains around how we got together and how it's been forming and so forth. She had shared with me that there's a group of folks in Bristol, Rhode Island, who are trying to create a similar group in Bristol. They're in a little different, or well, actually a lot different situation than we were in that they need to make a formal proposal to the town council, and they need to have that proposal actually accepted by the town council before they can go forward. So she wanted to know if I'd be happy to, willing to share information with her about our group, and I said absolutely. And I believe she also reached out to a couple of other towns and cities that have similar committees. The only one that had responded, other than myself, was an individual from North Andover, who I believe also has a diversity group. I'll be on a phone call with her on Thursday evening, and I don't know what they're going to ask. She said I didn't need to prepare anything, but it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they're up against, and then also be able to share, our story with them. I thought it was kind of cool that she knew that we even existed. So that was cool. So an agenda item for next week will be a follow-up. I'll let you folks know how that call went and what I learned. And I think the other good thing about it is that, I'm going to assume for the moment that they're going to be successful in their bid to get acceptance from the town, and that will be yet another group of like-minded people that we now have a contact with, and so it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that information with you folks.
Did you say, I didn't hear you say how she found out about us? Did she?
No, I didn't think to ask her that. Our initial conversation, actually, communication was via email. I had a very brief conversation with her on the phone, but that's one of the things, obviously, that I'll be checking with her on Thursday to understand, because I don't really know how it she found out about us, to tell you the truth.
That's great, though.
Yep.
That is great. And if you need any support, Phil, just let me know. I'm available on Thursday evening.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Susan?
Phil, can you just give me a spelling of her name for the minutes?
Yeah, it's Renee, Renee, and the last name is Soto, Soto.
Exactly what I had. All right, thanks.
All right, great. Any questions on that? All right, good. So before we go too much further, I want to thank Joe again for pulling together the results of the survey, putting them in a little different format, and getting those all out to us so that we'd have those for the meeting. I think will make it a lot easier, I believe, to have the next level of conversation. And I believe that now that we had the information and we're able to see the rankings, if you will, of all of the items that were surveyed. I think we wanted to, now that we have this information, we can kind of talk through how we want to go forward with kind of determining who's working on what, which things we're going to focus on. I would think, actually, I wanted to test this with the group. When I looked at the the listing, I went through and I picked out those items which were either rated 4 and above. So those would have been, what I'm terming, the top goals, because they were the top vote getters, so to speak. And so it would seem to me that at least initially that would be a good place for us to start, to look at those particular goals and then start to try to flesh them out and figure out how we want to go and work on that. Does that make sense to people? Are everybody comfortable with that approach? Okay. So I think that, oh, I'm sorry. Tricia?
I just have one comment. Because of what the Board of Health is dealing with right now, I understand that one of the biggest goals is to have the Board of Health declare racism as a health emergency. I just know right now what they're dealing with COVID and the possibility of having to implement a vaccine, that could we, even though it's an important goal and one that we really want to get to, I think the timing would be really tough to try to get their attention, their full attention,
right,
on that goal right now. So I just wanted to run that by the group. I just see them every day and I just know how overwhelmed they are with everything that they're dealing with presently with the crisis of the health emergency. So I just wanted to toss that out there.
Yep.
I'm not sure if it was the Board of Health or if it was our Board of Selectmen. Because
Well, I thought it was the Board of Health, but they're the ones who declare health emergencies. It was a health emergency, right? Isn't that what? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it says urged town of Chelmsford to declare racism a public health issue.
Correct.
And because the public health issue was brought up, I assumed you meant the Board of Health. If you meant the Board of Selectmen, that's an easy one. As a matter of fact, I was working on looking for proclamations because that's typically a good first step for the Board of Selectmen or mayor or a town manager to take, is to kind of create a proclamation that other people in the community can then follow and emulate. So I did put a draft one in the Teams documents, just again as a way of getting the conversation started about what we want from them. And it seems like an anti-racism pledge is a good place to start, that if they pledge to condemn and stand against racism and discrimination and hatred, and if they can do that and then encourage the community to do the same, that might be a good kickoff for what we're looking to do. But again, I wasn't sure if it was part of the goals conversation or if that was more an action item. So, but I just wanted to bring up the Board of Health thing. Also, just as where we're on goals, today I got a memo from the town manager regarding the goals that were established for him by the Board of Selectmen. And one of them is to monitor and support the progress of the Diversity, Racial Equity and Inclusion Committee. And the expectation is to receive periodic reports and updates from the committee, take actions as recommended, including training seminars, et cetera, for all employees and board and committee members. And the result would be improved communication and enhanced understanding of the issues and concerns of the residents. So that is one of the town manager's goals as assigned by the Board of Selectmen. So that was great.
Thank you.
Well, that's good to know. Oh, Carly, you're muted. Were you trying to say something?
Sorry about that. Does that include him getting money for us if we need it for? I'm not sure if he has a budget that we could utilize. I know we mentioned that early on.
Once we know what we want it for, then we can put together a proposal to ask for funding. I mean, that's certainly within the realm of what we can do. We kind of have to know what we need it for first.
But he would be the person that we would go to for that.
The town manager would have, yes, he's the one who does the budget. So, and we're working on our FY22 budget right now. So it might be good timing if we have an idea what we're looking for.
Well, it's actually good to know that we're kind of a line item, if you will, on his goal sheet, that he is being expected by the board to kind of keep track of what we're doing. It feels good to know that this is something that's important to him. It's not just us. It's now, as on his scorecard, it's got some visibility. So that's all good stuff. Good news. That's good stuff. Right. So, as we, kind of get back to the, conversation around goals and how we start the conversation, I think we're all in agreement that, looking at those top vote getters, are our top goals, and that's where we should start. I think everybody kind of nodded and said, okay, great. So with that being the case, it seems to me the next thing that we kind of need to decide is how we want to go about kind of addressing these goals. Because clearly these are like very general kinds of things. We haven't really put together, the specifics around what we need to do in each area to, what we're trying to actually accomplish, what the specific results are. They need to be fleshed out, obviously. And we haven't really started to talk about how we go about doing that. So that's one of the things I wanted to, really start that conversation, and hopefully, if we can, finish that conversation at this current meeting, so we can understand how are we going to go about addressing each of these specific goals. Are we going to have teams? And my guess is, we'd have, more, a group of 2 or 3 people perhaps working on several different goals. Do you want to, or do we want to organize the goals so that they're in kind of related buckets? I know currently, I know that Joe put them in some kind of a general bucket. We need to review that and say, are we okay with that? Do we want to juggle that around? How do we want to go about it? So it seems like we've got some fairly important decisions to make at this time before we can get in there and start to really get our hands dirty with the goals. Anyone have any thoughts on how we might want to start that work?
So I guess I have a question on how we make these become goals. Like, I know one of the things that I know it received a high score was the Fireside Chat with the police chief. But then what's the goal of that? I mean, what would the goal be? I mean, that's the action we would take based on what goal? Right.
And I can take a stab at that. And certainly as people feel differently or you have other thoughts, please jump in there. But that seems to me to be, one that we could probably get on, pretty easily, because what that goal is establishing, the goal I would see is establishing a regular communication with the Chelmsford department, the Chelmsford Police Department through the chief of police. And the goal would may be to establish quarterly updates with the chief of police, so that once a quarter the chief comes to our meeting, talks through with us, any issues that he is seeing or his group is seeing relevant to diversity, racial equity, and inclusion. From his standpoint, we share with him things that we're seeing, things that we've heard from our vantage point, and that we establish a regular process of communicating with him. That would be the goal that I would see, from that. I mean, that's what I would think of. I don't know if that makes sense to others, if people are seeing something different.
Sharice, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think one portion of that as well was to establish what they are doing as far as like diversity training. I know there's certain police departments in the area that are, you know, I can't think of the name of that training, but they have, you know, diversity training as far as how to, you know, if they come upon a situation, how to handle stopping or pulling over someone, particularly of color. I know there's a name for whatever reason.
De-escalation.
De-escalation.
Just
Thank
say.
you. That's it. So I know that was a big part of that because we don't know what the police department does at this point. They also talk about, you hear a lot about defunding, right? And there's a lot of misinterpretations about what that means. And so, for example, you have a lot of people, regardless of what color they are, dealing with mental illness. So how does that, how do they handle that? Because, or is that something they're considering to take some of those allocated funds and use them maybe to have, you know, I don't know if that's a higher up level or, you know, just to know how that's diffused. Do you, so you having a social worker be involved? Because that's some of the things going forward that needs to happen because they're not equipped, they're not in a position to deal with someone with mental illness. And that's a crisis in many cities, regardless of color, but mostly in certain cities that affects people of color, even more so. That's one thing. And so those are, I think, some of the things we talked about with the Fireside Chat. One of the things I've learned on being on a teleconference with, or Zoom call with the behavioral police, one of the things we learned is in certain cities, either the police chief has the opportunity or the liberties to fire, and in certain places they don't. So they don't have control. So they allow police who they know who are not functioning in their role properly to remain on the police force. So just questions we don't know. I don't know what Chelmsford Police Department, what they are, who governs them, or what kind of jurisdictions they have as far as hiring and firing people, because it's not always left in the hands of the police chief. It can be left in the hands of, who knows, the town manager. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would think that if we, if we can establish, some sort of a relationship with them, and if we're having conversations with them on a quarterly basis, we can bring up all those kinds of issues, Sharice. We can,
exactly.
It gives us an opportunity to say, hey, what are you seeing? Hey, these are some of the things we're hearing. What do you folks do for training? What do you folks do around this? So it feels like we're partnering with them versus feeling like we're saying to them, now, what do you do when you pull over somebody black? Now, what the heck is going on here? And you know what I'm saying? It's all about the approach. And what we're trying to do is to get people to be open to what we're suggesting, to understand that we do want to partner with them, that we're trying to, understand more about what's really going on in their world, and we want them to know more about what's going on in our world. So I think that we have an opportunity to do that. And if we can, again, set up something like a quarterly update with them, and, and maybe, maybe we do it at different times. But I think, again, something like that is something I think we could probably get on pretty quickly. I don't think we'd have to do a whole lot, and Tricia, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that wouldn't be too difficult to reach out to him.
The police chief is expecting to sit with us at some point. He's expecting. He's anxious to share with the group what they've already been doing, and anxious to have those conversations.
Great. Yeah. Yep. That sounds like a goal that's done.
But the goal is to establish regular communication with the police department through the police chief. And again, that word partnership, I think, is key to add in there, because that's what it's all about, really. It's understanding what they're doing and understanding what our expectation is of them and in their response in the community. So I think that once we can sit with him, but again, that's one goal. I think that that's a really good one. But I just wanted you to know he is also a strong police chief, which means that he's responsible for his department. And that's what they call them. If the police chief is responsible for the hiring and firing, if they're responsible for their own budget, things like that, it's called a strong chief. And we have both a strong police chief and a strong fire chief, so that they do have that accountability.
Good to know.
Speaking of accountability, though,
Tricia?
I think, Latasha, you had your hand up?
Yes, so the one thing that I was going to say is this was also an ask from the general public back in June to have this conversation. So it makes sense that we're taking on this as a goal and something that we're going to pursue in this first year as a committee.
And Carly, were you next, or Sue, were you both have your hands up?
I think Sue was before me.
Okay. I find that this whole question about how to talk to the police, it really sits with something I want to get involved with. I come from a family that has a long history of police officers all in New York City. And I find the few people in my family who are still cops are really defensive about this issue. Then I have a hard time being in favor of supporting police and supporting Black Lives Matter, because whenever I bring up Black Lives Matter, they get really defensive. So I think this is something that's really, really, really important for us to be able to develop a partnership with the police. I don't even know how to talk to my own cousin about it, and he's a police officer, and it brings up a lot of tension. So it's something I'm really interested in learning how to do, because we can't grow unless we can.
and my point was going to be that on the subject of accountability, we want to make sure that we get a working partnership with them, but we also want to make sure that we're asking tough questions, because if we just softball it, then they're going to say, oh, well, we've got this partnership with the Racism and Diversity Committee, and therefore we're not racist at all. And then it's going to be used as cover if an incident does happen. So, we got to make sure we hold their feet to the fire.
But we don't, in all fairness, we don't know that yet. We don't know. We haven't had the conversation. So I think you make a good point. And I think, I don't think anybody here is suggesting that, we give anyone that we talk to a pass. At the same time, we need to understand that we've got to somehow, we got to establish relationships with people, and be able to use those to work toward getting where we need to be. I just, I think that's key, because without that, you get into this adversarial loop that you never get out of, and I mean, we're not to, well, I won't even go there, but we know what getting into adversarial loops looks like, from Washington on down. So I think we want to we want to make sure that we're holding people accountable, but we want to do that in a respectful way and in a way that encourages them to participate with us. So, that would be my take on that.
Yeah, I'm just coming more from the all cops are bastards side of this equation. I've seen a lot of stuff being talked about that, and that I think that's a healthy assumption to go in with. And if they can prove us wrong, then all power to them. But I'd like for them to actually prove us wrong.
I'm a person of, no,
I'll second that.
That's fine. I'm a person of data, and it'd be nice to have this conversation with the police chief to get a baseline of their ticketing, profiling. There are situations where de-escalation was needed. So there's an opportunity for us to ask them to show us the data and then to revisit it, whether months later or a year later, to see if there's been progress made.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they don't have that kind of data, then that's also a problem. But we need to ask for the data. We need to make sure that they produce it for us. We need to review it and make sure it looks good. Personally, I would like to know how militarized the department is, how much weaponry they have, because that's another big issue with the police in this country. So, these are all good questions, and I want them to answer them instead of just throwing up a whole bunch of softballs and then they get to, cross us off as a thing on their list that they've done.
Brian, would you put together a list of questions, and maybe Latasha, could you add to that as well? I mean, maybe we can combine or if anybody else has any
Absolutely.
questions.
We can play good cop, bad cop during the
Yeah.
interview.
I don't think I have my hand up. This is Lauren. Can we put together a subcommittee for this goal? Because it seems like, you know, there's a lot. Like, I agree with everything. I wrote down the same things, like how many persons of color are on the force? Do we even have any? I have no idea. I have no idea what their stops are weekly. So I'm a data person too. So could there be a subcommittee just to deal with this very important topic, in my opinion?
I mean, I guess that depends on when we'd be able to work on it. You know, I mean, would we all go off from this meeting and have a sub meeting within the meeting, or would we get to discuss it, you know, off hours, or is that against the rules?
Yeah.
Apparently, Trisha's shaking her head, so it's against the
No.
rules.
Again, if I would invite the police chief to our meeting, and let's be prepared with our questions. Let's let him do a presentation to us and have a dialogue to start that way. And then in partnership with him, if there needs to be a subcommittee, that would be my recommendation, that in partnership with him, they could go off and then you guys could report back. But again, it would be a regular posted meeting, because any three people, you know, from a subcommittee is three people, would require a posted meeting. So all of those details can get worked out, but I still think we're far away from that. I mean, he can come in and have a conversation with us anytime you guys want, whenever you feel you're ready for him. But I would want us to have a prepared list of questions for him. I'd like to be able to give him those questions in advance. I think that's fair. And then I think that you should allow him a presentation time so that he can tell you what they have been working on already since the June rally and all of that. You know, they haven't been ignoring these issues since it was all come to light, and they know that it's a priority for the Board of Selectmen, this select board and the town manager. So, you know, it's something that people have been working on, just like the school committee has been working on things, which we don't know what that is yet, because we haven't organized enough yet ourselves to really pin down these goals. And that's what we really need to do. We need to pin down our goals. You know, regular communication with police, definitely a goal. Again, but the outcome of that, you know, is going to be what? You know, we need to really think these things through and say, yeah, we're going to increase communication with the police, and we're going to have regular meetings with them and make sure that we know what page we're all on. But the end result of that will be what? It just, you know, more common ground, more peaceful community, more a better relationship between the police and the diverse community. I mean, you know, I just think we just need to pin this stuff down very thoroughly. You take one topic and you really just say, okay, here's the goal, here's what we want to attain, here's how we're going to do it, and then, you know, we do the same for every single one of these. You know, so once we get a list of goals, then we can start working on those action items. I mean, that's what, you know, I think we need to do. So I think this is a great goal to start with. And I think you bring up great points, Brian, about your questions and having some tough questions. And then, so this was starting the action plan towards that goal. But again, what would the end result of the better relationship and better communication with the police? What are we looking for? Can anybody articulate that?
A community where you feel safe and respected.
Very good. Very good.
I mean, the thing that I want to make sure that we know and they know, and that they know we know, is that they work for us.
They know
not
that.
The other way around.
We all town employees know that, but
I know, but I've seen too many examples of the attitude of police being that they need to protect themselves from us and not the other way around. Meaning that they need to view protecting us as their job, not protecting each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Frankly,
because it doesn't seem enough like it's that way.
Frankly, the fact that billboard stayed in Chelmsford Center for a week, the defund the police thing that was there every time I rode by. Do you remember that thing, the truck that was there? Anyone remember?
It actually said defend the
Yes,
police.
I know that.
Okay, okay,
it was
good.
very implied. It was a very difficult message to take, because
there are bylaws. You can't, there are bylaws that they can deal with, and then there are then there's freedoms that they can't
Yeah.
deal. So, but again, that's an example, and that's a bylaw that's a signed bylaw that maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit, but they couldn't do anything about it. Nobody was breaking any rules, and they couldn't create a rule to make it, have to enforce something that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's why that was there.
So just piggybacking off Latasha's point, I think that we would have a conversation with the police to understand what their attitude is and make sure that it's an attitude that promotes safety for all residents, including ones that are of color, including ones that are of minorities, and just understand what their attitude is. And if they give us answers that we don't like, we need to let them know, these are the wrong answers, guys. That's the, I think, understanding what their perspective is and then letting them know where their perspective differs from our perspective, I think is the important part of what we want to get out of that better communication with the police.
Yeah, and I think filtering it down from the top is important. And I think, what the police chief's beliefs are and how that direction is, carries through the beat cops, the guys out there in the cars, that's what we want to make sure that all the training and everything else that they put in place is actually acted upon when they're out in the community.
Like is there a good attitude at the top? Does it trickle down?
Yeah.
And can you prove that it trickles down if it's there in the first place? That kind of thing. So
and I just would ask that, yes, let's give them that opportunity, and maybe sooner rather than later. How
I mean, I
think we said January we were going to start having people meet with us. Didn't we mention that, Phil?
I think January 19th would be the perfect date. It's the day after Dr. Martin Luther King Day. I can definitely generate some questions for one of our December meetings.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure Brian.
Yeah, I mean, this almost seems like a thing that we want to put on the agenda for a future meeting and take 20 or 30 minutes to hash out the list of questions that we want to ask. And that way everybody in the group can approve of the questions and approve the phrasing, because phrasing is important. And, we can approve the tone and the content, and everybody can come with their ideas. I think that would be a great agenda item for a future meeting.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I proposed, that we definitely get on the calendar before it gets filled. If the sooner the better, and just be prepared when that meeting starts. I mean, when that's on the calendar. And I like that date, Latasha. I think that would be nice.
What day of the week is it?
A Tuesday.
Perfect. That's perfect. I can schedule that. If you guys want me to go ahead and line up the chief for that date. What do you think, Phil?
I really would love to do this, even though I've said education is kind of my thing. I think this has to be a priority. I think it's a really important issue to get at right away. And I also want to add about end goals. It's not, the big end goal is a community where we feel safe. But I also think we need to think of how we'll use this to kind of make sure people in the community know that this is how our police force operates. So we have to think about that.
So
the communication public relations standpoint. Go ahead. Sorry, Carly.
Can I jump in? Just say that I think if we're going to put together questions, and if we're looking to partner with the police department, that we should share those questions in advance. We shouldn't blindside the police captain. We should make sure that they understand these are the types of questions we're going to ask you, so that you can be prepared to have those discussions. It's also important to remind everyone that there are people who are watching these posted meetings. So that's, again, why it's important that we let the police chief know in advance, because there may be things that we get into a discussion about that he's really not allowed to share, won't be ready. And I just think it's a good way to do business. I think going forward, we may not have to provide questions in advance, but for the inaugural meeting, I think it's important to say, these are the types of questions we're going to want to cover. And will you be prepared for that? Because people will download this meeting and the public will see it, and we can point people to it. But in the spirit of partnering, that would be the appropriate thing to do.
And I'm looking at the calendar right now, and let's see. I'm thinking about maybe December the 15th. Our meeting on the 15th might be a time where we could have the conversation and focus in on the list. and that would give us that meeting. We have a meeting, the next one would be the 22nd of December, so that would give folks time to either go over the list, we could finalize it. We could start on the 15th, finalize it on the 22nd, and that would still give the chief 2 or 3 weeks to have those questions before meeting with us. Does that make sense?
Natasha, my suggestion would be to start having the question discussion on December 8th, so the week before you're proposing. And that would give us the 15th to further discuss, and we could have them to him by the 22nd, I'm proposing. And that gives him about a month to gather all the data and to prepare for the discussion.
That's fine too. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, let's also keep in mind that we got the holidays in between.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think December the 8th is my proposal.
Can you, Brian and Latasha, start compiling your list? How many people can see the files in Microsoft Teams? Can you see, like, I know Latasha's put up some things. I put up a couple of things. Can you see the documents in Microsoft Teams? Do you all have the app, or is it just no?
I didn't know the docs were in there.
Yeah, I didn't know that there were.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe if we all try to download the app, and then I don't know, because when I send you an invitation to the meetings, some people respond and accept it and some people don't. So I'm wondering if the people that accept it can actually see things. Because Latasha, how do you manage to put things in there? Is it because you have Microsoft Teams on your computer?
I have it on my computer.
Okay, so maybe that's how. And only the reason I bring it up is I'm sorry. Okay, I had this.
I never paid attention to the agenda in the team, so I'll have to do that.
Okay, because there was it might be softballing it like you called it, Brian, but I don't know if anybody's ever seen Emmanuel Acho's conversation, uncomfortable conversations with a black man. Has anybody seen any of those? Well, there was one posted, a conversation with the police. And even though it was very good, I thought, because it was open about, how it was just an open conversation with this man, Emmanuel Acho, about how he feels about the police, how a lot of black people in general feel about the police, that they're afraid of them and the police's responses. And it was really an interesting conversation. So I thought I'd put that out there for people to take a look at. So it's just called A Conversation with the Police, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, episode 9, and it's on YouTube. And it's just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, he had a great one also with Kelsey Chandler on white privilege, understanding that. That was excellent as well. Yeah, that's a wonderful series.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay. But I throw stuff up there every now
just
and
one
then.
other thing.
Yeah.
Just one other thing. I just want to make sure we're not narrowing our scope to just Black, but also LGBTQ, and all of the other groups that marginalized when you guys think about these questions, because I am interested in understanding how many reports they get, tracking those things, because if they're not, they should be.
Right.
Good job, Carly. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
And one other, and not that this has anything to do with the police, but even name like selectmen, they still say selectmen. I think
No, they changed it. It's select board now. I keep slipping, but they did. They changed it. Every single mention of it in our bylaws and charter is now select board. So it took a while.
Summer, right? July. I think it was official in July. Select board.
The Attorney General's office had to approve it before we can make all the changes. So that's now select board. Yay! Yes. But I was getting back to the list of questions. I didn't know if maybe that would be something that if you gathered some questions together and we could put them in that Teams group, and then even if I shared the screen, with people, that way we have a kind of a list that we can work off of rather than just a conversation and then rely on the minutes the following week. It feels like we're missing an opportunity to really kind of hash things out without having a document to work with.
I agree.
Makes sense to me. So any additional conversation on this particular goal and what we're planning?
Just one question. Do we want to agree upon the frequency with which we meet with the police chief? Like, is it quarterly? Um, is it once a month? Or do we care to just kick that can for a later date to figure that out?
I don't have a burning need to have an answer for that yet. I mean, we can meet with them and then see where he is around it. I'm not so sure that once a month is necessary. It feels like more once a quarter, makes sense. And in point of fact, we don't know where the conversations are going to go and whether.
Right.
I mean, we could have the conversation and feel like, no, we don't need to do this once a month.
Right.
We may be pleasantly surprised with what we hear. So I would my recommendation would be to hang loose and let's see where it comes down, and then if somebody feels like they need an answer, I would say I don't see it being more than once a quarter at this point.
So can I get the wording? I had written that the goal might be establish a regular communication with the chief of police. I'm trying to get it on my screen here.
We had established regular communication with the police department through the police chief. But I'm wondering if it should be establish a partnership with the police department through the police chief. I don't know. Is that too soft? I just like that word partnership.
I don't think it's soft at all.
I think it's important to partner with our police.
No, that's what we're going for, but we need to make sure that we hold them as accountable as we want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we setting the goal?
Yeah.
I mean, are we really going to say in the goal we're going to establish a partnership, or is the goal? I don't know. I mean, that's the high goal, but the real measurable one is regular communication.
That's true.
Can't really measure a partnership.
That's true.
Right.
I think the measurable goal actually is what Latasha said, which is, do people of color feel safe?
So in that case, maybe what we want to do is try to link that one in with the idea of surveying the town, because the only way we're going to know whether or not people of color feel safe in this town is by asking them. And if we can set up some sort of regular survey about getting the feeling of the town about whether or not we're actually making any progress, that's how we're going to get our data. So
I'm just curious.
I feel like we keep getting into more actions before we've really established what this goal is.
I'm with you, Susan. We need a goal, and then we need the action items to get to the goal.
I've established regular communication, maybe quarterly updates with the police department through police of through the chief of police. And I don't really know what the goal is. I just have relevance, diversity, and racial equity.
So
goal to what?
One of the things,
goal, an expectation, and a result.
One of the things I heard a couple of times was that we want to respond to what we heard at the vigil earlier this summer, which is, making sure that the community understands what our police department does, what their policies are, how they police. And if we can share that with them, I think that we've met a goal by ensuring that everyone understands this is how our police department operates.
Right,
and
but
this
that
is what
goes
they
to
do
the
for training.
public relations part of it again. That's the communication out.
That's it's the communication out, but in terms of why do we need to talk to the police chief, it's to understand what they do, pull back the curtain and say, what are you doing, how do you do it, and make sure that we have, it is communication, but that in itself is something that can be measurable. We're having frequent conversations or quarterly conversations, and we're sharing that information with the town. That was one of the things that they asked.
So can we say that we want to have communication to understand how our police department operates relevant to diversity and racial equity? I mean, is it, that's what we're trying to get at, right?
It might be easier to phrase the goal in terms of a deliverable. What
Right.
are we going to put out into the world as a result of these conversations with the police?
Well, you have, again, a goal, an expectation, and then a result, and then you do your action items to get there. So I don't know, the goal can be to establish, I mean, I don't know. I get a little lost with I'm trying to organize everything into a tree of something, but
right, yeah. No, and I think that makes sense.
I mean, I still am trying to look at and trying to compartmentalize everything where we've got, okay, right now we've been talking a lot about community because the police and the relationship with the police and the community and all of that is part of that community piece. And then communication and public relations is also part of that, that give and take, of what we want to learn and what we want to share. But then, and then we've got the education piece, which we are not even talking about that yet, but that's another. So education, community, and communication / public relations are kind of the categories. Right now, we're in kind of the community communication piece with the police. So it's, what we learn from the police chief and what we expect from our police department, and then what we communicate to the community. I mean, that's like a one thing will lead to the next. It's a flow. So if the goal is to, is it the partnership is the goal, right? I mean, because the partnership is what's going to give us the result of the feeling safe in our community. I mean, and we have to establish that trust between.
So I think what the partnership is going to do is establish safety and respect. The community will feel safe. The police will feel respected. And that's where the partnership comes in.
Could you say that again? I want to get exactly how you said that.
Okay. So the safety is for our community, and the respect is for our police. So the community feels safe and our police feel respected. And that's our partnership.
Yeah, and the community should feel respected as well. I mean, that's, when that police
Yes,
car pulls up, they want to feel like they're respected.
Right, but I believe one of the reasons why there's so much tension when someone says Black Lives Matters to a police officer, they feel like they're not respected. And so that's where the tension rises.
So I just feel like that's very broad and very general. When you say the community, there are members of this community, particularly white people, who are just fine with the police. I just feel like we should be more specific.
I hear you. I'm just afraid if we're too specific, then we might leave people out. There are some categories of diversity that we're not actually talking about right now. People who are disabled, people with mental illnesses. The list goes on and on. So that's why I'm using a general term such as community. We can definitely ask very specific questions about Blacks or about Latinos or whomever we choose. But for the purpose of writing this goal, I think leaving it broad is the best approach.
Okay. To improve communication between the community and the police department, to establish an overall attitude of promoting safety and respect. I don't know.
I think something's missing. Even it's we have a committee here, and I think that should be included in that because it's really even a partnership with us as well. I mean, I know we're part of the community, but somehow integrating the committee, I don't know how you word that, but because we're trying to establish this for the community at
The
large.
liaison.
What's that?
Liaison.
I like that word. The
That's who we
liaison
are.
between that's who we are, the liaison between the community and the police, or some kind of way that could be worded.
Where's our writer in the group? Joe, where are you?
I'm here. I can't do it.
I know, we got to sum it all up, with the conversation. All right. I don't know.
We
Susan,
can
it may
always
be up
have
to
a
you.
homework assignment to wordsmith it. For now, we can just put it as what it is. The DREC is established to be a liaison between the community and the police to make sure we establish understanding and something. And then we just figure it out, because it's like close to 8 almost. So I don't know if we're gonna wordsmith. I think we're all kind of tired here. This is the least amount of talking.
Mutual respect. Do you maybe want to go for that somewhere in the statement?
I like that.
An attitude of mutual respect to what's the word? Oh, it was right on the tip of my tongue. To foster an attitude of mutual respect and safety and security, and I don't know.
And I think understanding is important, because there's a lot we don't even know in this committee. We can't even establish. We don't know what the police does. We don't understand a lot of that. So I think understanding is key.
Empathy might be good in there too.
Oh boy. Susan, you're our secretary. You're gonna have to.
I know. I'm ready to. I put one little blurb in the meeting chat, but then people have said more things since then.
Oh, I haven't even looked at the chat.
I just did that just now, but
okay.
I'm adding more in.
Establish a partnership and regular communication with police department through the chief of police to understand how our police department operates, relevant to diversity and equity, and to establish safety for community and respect for police.
But now I've changed it to foster an attitude of mutual respect.
Well, yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I missed some points too. I think there was a lot coming out there.
And this is just one goal. Geez.
Yeah.
And Joe didn't say anything about the commas.
Oh yeah.
Don't even get to that.
Joe's here, but he's like
that's Brian.
I think that's Brian.
Brian's the comma guy.
I actually can't see the chat. For some reason, it says chat and channel meetings is only available to team members. So somehow I'm not a member.
Me too. Lauren too. I can't see anything. So
here, let me see. Can you get into, if I put this in, if I copy it and put it in the Teams thing?
That never used to be the case.
Can you see it
today?
Yeah, I can't see it either. I got the same message.
A few of us are showing as guests.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's maybe because you didn't accept the meeting when I emailed you.
I never got an email.
I accepted
Nobody ever.
I didn't get an email either. I just went to our agenda on the town's webpage and clicked on that to join the meeting.
Yep. I got the email, Tricia, so it's there, but there were a few different emails, and then you had to open it, and then it opened up in Teams, and then you could accept it. So it was not a simple process.
So if they don't have Teams, then that's the problem. That's what. Okay. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure this out.
That's where I saw the video you mentioned about the uncomfortable conversation. It was in the same place where that link came to accept.
Okay. And I'm still trying to figure out how to. Latasha seems to put stuff in there so easily, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do that.
I didn't see anything else.
All right, new conversation. I'll click it in there. All right. Well, here, Control V. I don't know. And send. Okay, so I guess when my IT guys set you all up with your emails in this group, I assumed that when I posted a meeting, it went to all of you, but I guess it doesn't. So I'll email it directly, the link to the agenda to you when I post it from now on. And then, but I mean, if you can get Microsoft Teams either on your computer or whatever device you use, I mean, then maybe it would be.
Well, I have Teams on this computer, but it's not showing me anything different. Like I have the email, I clicked on the click here to join the meeting link. It opened a tab and it said, if your Teams app, or if you open your Teams app, and I already have it, so it just opens and then it pops me up in here.
Oh,
So
okay.
That's
Brian,
what happened with me.
while we talked, when you look at that initial email that you got, at the bottom there's a small footer and it says like view team documents. If I clicked on that, and it brought me to like the web app from Microsoft Teams, and then I was able to log in and I can see the conversations now. But I had just never thought to do that.
So view group files, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe that's there. I don't know. I just put in, oh, so actually I didn't put it in. Susan, you put it in the chat in the diversity group. You put it in, I don't know. I couldn't do
just
it.
a little while ago, but not
Yeah,
everyone
just
can
did it.
see it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll
And
have to work on that.
It's not well written. It's just my quick gathering of.
If you guys email it to the group, like, do you have everybody's email, right? Somebody did a contact list. If we email the questions to the group, as long as we don't discuss it in the email, we can share documents with each other. We just can't comment back and forth on them. So at least we'll have the starting point, and then we can put it on the agenda and say, you know, finalize the language on, you know, goal number 2 or goal number 1 or whatever. But I mean, this is a lot of we got a long way to go to get the rest of our goals done.
Tricia, one question for clarification. Brian and I can talk about the questions outside of a meeting because it's not 3 or more, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So him and I can talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, our group is supposedly 13 people, so technically, half of that is a quorum. So even 3 people could talk. You know, less than so even up to 5 people could talk because our committee is 13 people. I have to find out what's going on with Jay. I haven't seen Jay.
Already came once.
Yeah, he came once. I'll reach out to him and see if we can get him back.
That would be nice. Wish him happy Diwali.
Oh, I will. Thank you. All right. Well, being the hour, I mean, this goal, I don't know who's going to take the lead in fine tuning that wordsmithing it. Anybody else going to wordsmith it? I think Susan did a good job.
I'll take a stab at it.
Thank you, Phil.
I'll take a stab at it.
And I
see what I come up with.
So Phil, can you see what's in chat?
No, I can't, but if you want to send me whatever you got, that's great.
That's what I'll do.
Okay. And Tricia, you want to send me what you have? Do you have anything?
No, I was just making scribbles on a notepad here.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
No.
I leave it to other people to make it more concise. I'm not. I just toss it out there and let you guys do the fine tuning.
All right, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, and that's goal number 1. So we got to talk about goal number 2.
Yeah,
I mean,
we only by my count, we only have 12 other ones to talk about. I think there was a total of if you looked at the goals that were rated 4 or higher, I counted 13 of them. So I think it's like 12 or 13 goals rated 4 or higher. So
Rachel has her hand up. Let's see.
Oh, Rachel?
Do we have that list somewhere with that in order? I seem to have missed that. The one
we
that
have a list. I think what
I
I
only sent
have
it to 4 people.
Okay.
So Phil, Latasha, and Trisha, I think got it. So I could share it with the whole group.
I never got it.
Susan.
I got these like chart things. I didn't really get a list. Okay.
So that didn't go to everyone. But Phil, something that you just mentioned. So you did all the ones that are based on 4 or above. I did like a weighted average. I don't know if that's on there too. I could give those that might be a little bit more accurate?
Not unless you think it's going to yield something totally different. I'm
I just
good
want
with
to
what
see a
you provide.
list.
And I
in
think
order
some
of
of them are going
priorities,
to
Phil.
merge. They're going to merge into one. You know, there's quite a few things that are similar enough that we can merge them together. So we don't really need a goal for every one. I think we're going to be able to consolidate them.
Yeah, like you said, some of them are already action items. They're not necessarily goals. So, but you know, I liked the idea where we were talking last week about keeping it into the kind of categories. We got the education, community, and, you know, public relations or whatever, and then identifying the goals underneath those to start, and then try to break them out from there with the expectations and the results that we're looking for. But Phil, you can email your list. Like if you can prioritize that list that you have and you email it to everybody. Okay. So then we can look at it. We can, you know, bring our comments next time, or even you can each email to Phil separately, you know, we just can't all deliberate.
Yeah, whatever works. Whatever works. Yeah, I don't mind trying to put mine all together and sending it out to folks.
Okay.
So
Right,
yeah, I'll give that a try, and hopefully I can get something out to you sooner as opposed to later.
Okay. Because don't you think it'd be good to have these all buttoned up before we start really talking to people? I mean, I mean, yeah, absolutely. We got to have all our goals just kind of like buttoned up.
I couldn't agree more, because I mean, it makes us, we can't talk intelligently about what we're doing if we don't have the information in front of us, you know, and it's not going to be a compelling conversation for the people we're talking to if they go, well, these folks, I don't know what they're talking to me about. They don't have anything really to show me other than to say that, yeah, we're here and you know, we're going to partner with you or whatever. We need to have more. So no, I absolutely agree with that.
Okay. And I'm going to email everybody the draft proclamation I did. I kind of stole something I found from Monroe, Washington, and I was looking at a bunch of other stuff. But by all means, I'm just going to send you what I did. Feel free to comment and change it up and do whatever individually back to me. But ultimately, I think that when we're ready to say, okay, here's our goals, here's our action plans, and here's what we want from the Board of Selectmen to say that they support what we're doing. And maybe we want to put our goals in there. But I was thinking when I was watching the initial June 30th discussion with the board, that the Board of Selectmen had, the open session, I was thinking about asking people to do a pledge, you know, an anti-racism pledge, an individual pledge. And that's what I was kind of looking at. And I said, well, if we're going to have people kind of pledge towards anti-racism or, you know, anti-discrimination of any kind, then we should start with the selectmen first, the select board, excuse me.
I like that idea of making it an open pledge that we can ask other groups as we build partnerships with. Like that would be really powerful in the conversation with the police chief. It would be, you know, great as other organizations that we work with. Like you've also taken this pledge, and I just think that carries a lot of weight to making everyone feel included. And that this is important.
Yeah, we might have to pare the proclamation down to a pledge, but I thought it was just a place to start. So I'm going to email that to everybody right now so that you can look at it and change it up. And again, maybe we can get a pledge from that. Is the last paragraph of the Board of Selectmen's proclamation that we're going to propose, that I just said, further, we do hereby submit that residents, employers, places of worship, and elected officials in our community must engage in similar commitments to condemn and stand against racism, discrimination, and hatred, and to support peace, love, positivity, and a true unity of spirit. I thought that was nice. But again, it might be too schmaltzy for some, so I'll send it out and you guys can chop it up however you want. Okay. So.
That's great, thanks. Any other comments? All right, well, we have come to the end of our meeting, I believe. Oh, we're going to meet next week, I assume? Next week, 7 o'clock, 7 to 8?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
The 24th of November.
Same back channel.
Okay, hold on before we...
Old enough to remember Batman.
I am against the wishes of our dear governor. I am traveling next week for Thanksgiving. So I will be in Nevada and it will be a different time zone. I expect that I will be able to log in from where I am to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But if something goes wrong where I am and I can't do that, you'll know that's why, and I'll need someone else to take the minutes. I hope to be available next week. I just can't promise.
Okay. Are there any volunteers?
Not me.
I can take the notes, Phil.
Okay, great.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
hopefully I'll be there. I just want to know because of the time difference and all, and I'll be in somebody else's house. We'll see
All
what
right.
happens.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, I would like to move that our meeting of this evening be adjourned. Any seconds?
A second.
A second. Okay. Have a wonderful evening, folks.
You too.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.